I'm your creepy host, Toilet Creepy Terry. Yes, that's my middle name. No, I'm just kidding, it's not. But, anywho, tonight's topic is creepy drive-by. I had a friend when I was a kid who told me this story of one time when he went through a creepy drive-by. Okay, he was out camping. I'm gonna tell it from his perspective, as if I'm him. First person. So, we were out camping. We were driving through a mysterious sketch area. I've got the creeps already. Sorry. My mother was in the passenger seat. Dad was in the driver's seat. We weren't really talking. And then my mother says, "Oh my God! Oh my God! Honey, do you see that?" And Dad says, "Yes, honey, I see it. I'm gonna slow down and let them drive by." I couldn't personally see inside the car, but what I saw outside the car hanging was a hand and arm of somebody who could have just been, I don't know, they were just impossibly thin. I asked my mother, "What was that?" And she said, "Oh, nothing. And then years later, when she thought I was older, she told me it was a skeleton. And I know, that was no mask. I could see right through the jaws. And it had a tongue, and it had eyes, and such and such and such. Well, years later, after Mom had passed away, yes, after years of backing her up, Dad said, no, your mother was just, it was no skeleton. It had to be a mask. Nothing could survive like that. Another scary drive-by story. When my grandfather was a kid, he was looking for a job. He drove by a strip club, kind of a metal punk rock kind of vibe. So, he asked them if they're hiring. They say yes, and he gets the job. About 6 weeks into the job, he sensed that something was not right. He started to get this really panicky feeling inside of him, right? So, yeah, it was kind of a sketch environment anyway. It was kind of in the hood. It was kind of in a really dangerous, and it was in a really bad part of town. There was this break room behind the stage, right, where the dancers would go, and they would either use as an extra dressing room or break room. At least the builders of the place hoped that, but they never used it, and no one ever asked why. But my grandfather would use it all the time, and whenever he would go back there, this would give him the most suffocating feelings ever. He would have panic attacks, he would hyperventilate back there, and he could not figure out why. He just did not feel safe. Okay, so he did not have a car. Public transportation was nowhere near the area because it was in the hood. So he decided, okay, I'm just gonna get one of the dancers after her shift is over to take me home when my shift is over, because his shifts usually did not end until 4 in the morning. After his own shift ended, he waited until the dancer that drove him home's shift ended, and in his extra time he would go back to that break room and study and do some homework. But in that time, he always, of course, like I said before, had panic attacks, was suffocating to death, yada yada yada, because of whatever was in the atmosphere that was tormenting him. Also around this time of year, it was getting closer to Halloween. He was watching scary movies, but yet these feelings didn't really happen anywhere else around this time. It was only in that place, so it obviously had nothing to do with Halloween coming up and just around the corner. That night, or one night when he went home, the dancer dropped him off, and just before he got out of the car, he says to her, "What is it about that back room that's just so creepy?" And she says, "I don't know, it creeps me out." I got the creeps right now. As you can tell, I'm a bit slurred in my speech. "It gives me the creeps too," she said. So then, yeah. She didn't go into any detail, of course. And then one night, he was carrying an extra set of glasses back there, and right when he put them down, he heard this horrifying shriek, just like in a horror movie. Yeah. The sound of what seemed to be a chainsaw then reverberated across the entire room. He then screamed and ran out onto the floor. My grandfather did. And he said to the bartender, "What was that?" And the bartender says to him, "I hear that noise all the time too. Sometimes it's just me, sometimes other people hear it. We've heard it at least 5 times, reportedly." whenever we go back there at night after the place closes, because this happened after the place closed. And then, so, yeah. My grandfather goes back there again later, and the lights start flickering on and off, and then a red light appears as if somebody is holding their hand over the light bulb, because, you know, it turns red when you hold your hand over it. Scientifically proven. Not to sound like a nerd or anything, but you know what I'm trying to say. Something was not right. So then he goes to the bartender again, and then the bartender comes back there, and the light is completely dead. Completely dead. I know. Creepy. And yeah. It was getting closer and closer to Halloween around this time, like I said before, and eventually, as it got closer to Halloween, my grandfather was like, everybody knows it's getting close to Halloween. I don't want them to think I'm some crazy scaredy cat, so he quit going to the bartender every time he had a problem. This one time when he started to feel the pit of fear in his stomach and the panic, he forced himself to look away, right, into the dressing room. But then in the mirror, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a reflection, and he forced himself to look that way. And there it was. There were two dancers' legs in ripped tights that were floating, just floating above the ground, and they started swaying back and forth. And at this point, my grandfather is freaking out. He's freaking out. Of course, when everyone else went back there after he reported it, nothing was there, and one of the dancers was convinced that the room was haunted, and so was the dancer that drove him home from work every night. This whole time, he felt like he was losing his mind. Which leads me into our next topic. Join us on the next Toilet Talk with Terry for Losing My Mind. I feel like I'm losing my mind too as I'm telling these stories. So that'd be perfect. Okay, don't forget to click subscribe for more scary and spooky content. It's gonna be lit, spooky, and scary. You don't want to miss it unless you're just a scaredy pants or a scaredy cat. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Good night, everybody.